Well, then a pre-happy birthday to all of you. I love being able to hop in here and chat with you all and have these awesome conversations. So please do keep it up. And, yeah, happy early birthday. I agree, Rhodey. Ooh, that salsa was a little spicy. Fortunately, I have some, hashtag not sponsored, but some nice, a diet cherry cola of some random brand. All right. Where do I want this? I want to put this over here. I have some labeling I have to do a little bit later. Okay. Hey, I look at mine as anniversaries of my 21st birthday. Not that I'm a heavy drinker or anything, but it's a fun tongue-in-cheek milestone, isn't it? Well, Velocidatus, I would have got or I would have obtained. I would have purchased Cherry Coke Zero if it was available where I stopped off while I was doing some errands. Unfortunately, they only had regular and hashtag first world problems. They have that wild, I think it's wild cherry Diet Coke, which isn't terrible. But I had that recently, and I'm like, yeah, I'll mix it up. Like, you know, live life. Try different. You know, rotate the brands you enjoy. I certainly do it with salsa. In fact, my local grocery store allows you to craft your own custom 6-pack from different like independent small breweries that they get some stock in, and I love going there and exploring and trying new flavors, and it's great. A Safeway? I don't think we have a Safeway 12 for 10. Yeah, if it's a more of a Midwest store called Kroger. I know there's like a lot of sub companies, but yeah, it's I've posted pictures of it because maybe I could make this a weekly feature. Maybe I could take a picture of sort of a random 6-pack that I make and have you all come up with an adventure idea based on it, because a lot of these independent labels have beautiful art, some very crafty names, and just a variety of information about them, where they were brewed and such. That could be a fun addition to the channel when we have our year anniversary, because I'm going to be changing up some things about the Discord too. Nothing bad. I'm not upset with it, but I want to go through, as I do rather often, and we'll reorganize things. No, Rhodey, you don't need to apologize. This is a conversation. You are good. No, and if you ever need to talk about that stuff, you know, you are welcome to. If you need to shoot a message over to me and you want to talk about this sort of stuff, you can do so. You have a Subway, says Broplayer. Oh, so Velocidatus isn't too far away. Well, hopefully that one has a similar selection in their adult beverage area. Of course, ours also has a bar built into it. You could just go and you know, they have a tap, and you know, you could try wines and whatever. It's really nice. You're in the Northwest. We have Safeway, Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Rosauers. I haven't heard of that last one. I've heard of the others, though. $12 a bottle. That's decent. Although I'll tell you, mead is rather easy to make at home, too, if you had the gumption to do so. You know, secret, it's really just honey and water. However, that said, I have a bottle of mead. No, I understand 12 for 10. I have a bottle of mead. There's a wine festival that comes to town every summer here, and so I try the various meads that are brought, and you know, I support local businesses by picking up a few. So I'll maybe I could raise ooh, I wonder if I could. Maybe I could raise a cup of it to y'all tomorrow for the final broadcast of the year, as we you know, as we get ready to celebrate Christmas, if you do, or solstice, or whatever, you know, whatever is important to you, and then we go into the new year 2019. Maybe I can get some mead and I'll raise a cup in salute, and we can toast each other with whatever sort of a toast that you would like to bring. Maybe I'll put that on our Discord. And we'll go through it as we're all toasting each other. Ah, yes, Hy-Vee. I've heard of that, but I haven't been to one. Velocidatus has given us the inside info here. Yeah, you know, Diadems, I'd like to work with the boys up at Risky Brewing to come up with maybe a special beverage, and see if that's something that maybe I can work with them on in order to promote and sort of have be its own thing, you know. And hey, speaking of businesses and whatnot, as we're talking about establishments and strongholds, in the first part here, we're going to be exploring strongholds by class, and what it means if, you know, what is a barbarian's camp? What is a druid's grove? What's a sorcerer's sanctum? And so we'll pop into that. Again, you can still talk about mead and brewing and all that you wish here, and I'll continue to engage as we. This is casual, right? We're sitting down, we're talking D&D, we have the resources here, so let's just have some fun with it, huh? You may or may not have been caught trying to brew in the barracks. A cautionary tale. Next, you're going to give us a secret recipe for distilling from hand sanitizer, right? And yeah, the maintenance can be something else. 12 for 10. Maybe not terrible, but it's not unmessy. Regardless of whether you build a keep, tedious, yeah. A tower, a temple, or an establishment, such as a barracks or a microbrewery, a mead distillery. Your stronghold improves your signature class ability and attracts followers based on your class. The stronghold for each class has a dramatic name, a bard's theater, a monk's monastery. But these names are merely examples chosen for flavor. You are free to imagine and name your stronghold in whatever manner seems best to you. Maybe your bard owns a library. Fantastic excuse to get folks coming in and out, each dropping off useful nuggets of information. Maybe your barbarian prefers calling it their horde rather than a camp. It's entirely up to you. Furthermore, many of the following abilities reference alignment, but that's purely because I'm old-fashioned and prefer the era when paladins fought for good, and I always assume warlocks are sinister. Feel free to reinterpret the abilities so they benefit you and your allies and harm your enemies, however they're defined. Oh, being a beekeeper, that's... Beekeeping... as compared to other types of farming or even gardening, does seem very approachable. You know, you have concerns. You got to make sure that you're out there helping to maintain the hives. But it does seem like an approachable, if you have the land for it anyway, an approachable thing to do. Yes, indeed. There's some very, like, Frangelico, and of course, when we were having our brewing week with the boys from Risky Brewing, you know, talking about Belgium and how the alcohol was brewed there almost exclusively by monasteries, and you know, and of course, you know, wine in many religions is you know, a sacrament, or it's something that is consumed as part of ritual, or just because it's interwoven. Brewing has been with humanity for quite some time, and especially if you have a cloister of people who, you know, they're living simple lives and they need sustenance or even a way to earn money for the monastery. There we go. Excellent. Are you talking about Frangelico or really just any sort of like a Belgian ale in general? The ruler and the land are one. Ooh, that's very Strahd sounding, and there's a reason. I mean, given why Strahd had that sort of bond. Owning a stronghold, leading people, inspires you and grants you insight. It also allows you to draw power from the land itself. The land you protect serves you just as the workers who built your keep, and you in turn protect the land just as you protect your peasants and serfs. This mystical connection manifests in actual power. When your druid takes on the form of a bear and gains fire breath, or your paladin's sword cuts through the enemy's defenses, this is the power of the land itself coursing through you, rewarding you for your protection of it. The ruler feels this and knows when the land is ill. The connection between the ruler and their land is real and palpable. The area governed by a stronghold is called a domain, and grows as the stronghold does, expanding the owner's rule in a radius of hexes equal to the stronghold level. Kingdoms in warfare will have many more rules for this. So future supplement to apply. The system in both books assumes a 24-mile hex, so all powers affect a 12-mile radius per stronghold level. Domain effects and stronghold actions. The power of a stronghold changes the land around it in dramatic and sometimes mechanically interesting ways. As the regent of a land, you'll gain new abilities that only work within your stronghold, the nexus of your power. These stronghold actions are epic, but don't worry, GMs, stronghold actions only work inside the stronghold unless otherwise noted. So there's no danger the player will use them to unbalance your game. Building a stronghold makes a statement. You make allies but also enemies. Having some of those enemies attack the player in their stronghold, perhaps infiltrating it under cover of night, perhaps gaining entrance under guise of some diplomatic or trade mission, gives the players a chance to feel really badass, which is a core element of this fantasy we're all engaging with. Whenever a stronghold action or domain effect prompts a saving throw, its DC is the stronghold owner's spellcasting DC unless otherwise noted. Players may be tempted to abuse their stronghold actions, using them to show off in inappropriate circumstances. Should they abuse this privilege, they may find the land they serve, and which grants them this power, has limited resources and even less patience. Hey, Tricey, welcome! Rhodium, okay, well, I'm glad then if you want to step up and donate, you did your research and you found out if you can, and you know, and if you start donating, then I mean, really, you are helping people out by doing so. I mean, with all the uses that a donated pint of blood can bring to someone, you know, in an emergency, and you know, whether it's a kid or an adult, it's a good and important thing to do. And Nadpoo is here too. And Coffee Cat, I'm glad you made more progress. I saw you streaming, but unfortunately I was out and about most of the day, so I wasn't able to pop in and say hi. But I will gladly peek at any of the art that you have, whether it's a whip, a work in progress, or it's finished. I'll happily take a peek at it. By the way, this is a theme that you are going to find prevalent in the realm of Barovia, which is an area ruled over by Strahd von Zarovich, who is a very powerful warrior and vampire. Not that I'm not giving away anything that's not very obvious from the cover of an adventure. Founding a stronghold improves your class's signature features as your new domain grants you power. Typically, this improved class feature has a limited number of uses, based on your stronghold level usually, after which you must take an extended rest, which is, in these terms, remember, that's a week. And it's a week that you are spending inside your tower, engaging with people, researching, you're actively participating in your own stronghold. Different classes, different followers. Each class has its own... oh, and by the way, it does say about multi-class characters can choose any one of their class abilities to improve. These charts make certain assumptions about how the different classes are each perceived by society. Two classes may be equally effective in combat, but that doesn't say anything about how the local artisans or infantry completely feel about them. Some classes have a wider range of results. Paladins can gain more different followers than sorcerers. This reflects how normal people, italicized, normies, bah, view the different classes. Paladins and fighters and clerics tend to be respected, trusted. If they have spells, they often use them to help heal. But peasants don't react well to sorcery. To arcane knowledge, man was not meant to know. The follower, and these are, remember, these are Mr. Colville's opinions. If you run a world in which sorcerers, you might run them like X-Men, because that's what sorcerers are. They're kind of mutants. Their magic is inherent. They just cast spells through them, through themselves. Sorcerers could be beneficent instead of malevolent. They can be perceived as paragons of society. So remember, as we're reading this, that these are lines in the sand, which were put down with buttressing reasons, even if it was the author's own experience and opinion, which he does freely indicate above, which I enjoy. Because if people are upfront about that, even if you might disagree with them, it makes it easier to try and listen and understand the idea, because you have a base of knowledge from which you can see where they're coming from, and to engage in more of a conversation. What's normal? That's a very good question, Bro Plier. We're probably talking about mundane, so like non-magical people, like no one with exceptional strength or smarts, people who live a basic life of some kind of a trade, a craft, farming, working the land. Zulurpai is a Strahd who like variety, a Stradivarius, or who likes variety. Oh, you know what? When I was running Curse of Strahd, I should have had him playing a violin. Zulurpai, that's very clever. Okay, so Rhodium's asking a question about Cambions. There's nothing saying that they can't look like an attractive human. I mean, some of them do use magic, and they could magically disguise themselves to hide their wings and tails and horns if they wish. Or even if those are preferable traits. There's nothing saying that some people might not find a particular body style attractive in some capacity. The cultural assumptions reflect that default Fantasyland campaign setting, but the assumptions of your setting may be very different. GMs, you can adjust these charts to reflect your world's assumptions, or even let players roll on a chart for a different class if it makes more sense. Multi-class characters can roll on any chart for which they have class levels. The follower chart in this chapter the follower charts in this chapter are meant to inspire you, not limit you. And I like that sentence. When to roll. The GM decides when the player gets to roll on a follower chart. Here are some typical times to roll. When the PC spends the money for a stronghold and starts construction. When construction of the stronghold finishes. When the PC improves, i.e. levels up, a finished stronghold. Or when the PC, him or herself, levels up. GMs, you're free to combine these rules, letting the player roll when they improve their stronghold and when they level their character up. For example, it's more about pacing than anything else. I think a good pace is one roll to attract a follower per 32-page adventure, or once per chapter in a major hardcover adventure. Multi-class characters can roll on any chart for which they have levels. This book assumes the player rolls on their own chart. The problem with this, of course, is that the results are random. There may be some results that you know the player wouldn't like, or that you think are a bad fit for your campaign or the current adventure. In this case, you have a couple options. You can make a unique chart, or you can have the GM roll, or you can have the GM roll. Or, honestly, you could just pick off the menu here. Oh, look at that golden lull, Coffee Cat. Coffee Cat, you do draw lots of pretty things, and I know that you have a penchant for tieflings. And you do draw them. I like that you might challenge the conception of tieflings as being diabolic schemers and, and villains. Not that they can't be. But you also show them in very, we'll say very human moments. One of the ones that you drew that stands out the most to me is the one where it's one tiefling hugging the other who seems to be very upset. And it's just a very touching moment because, we look at the red skin and the horns or the tail or whatever, and it can sometimes put a filter or a barrier saying, well, they're not like us, and so, they don't feel these same emotions. And so I like especially that picture that you drew. I don't know if it has a title or not, or if it does, I'm sorry that I missed it. But that one picture in particular stands out because it's a very human moment between two tieflings that you might not expect, right? It could be shocking or jarring that you can reflect on the humanity of something that seems inhumane by default. Well, see, Coffee Cat, I totally understand your sentiment there. At the same time, I will argue, and you can argue against this, that it is necessary to present them in that fashion to provide a base conception of the race upon which you can apply your own thoughts about it. So if I present generic Dragonborn, generic Tiefling, we may have these presumptions of how they behave or even how they look. And because of that, when you play a Tiefling that stands out from the common conception, then it makes your character more powerful and more unique and more memorable. Many of us might think, let's go back to a common race such as Elves. Oh, they're haughty, they're distant, they're foreign, and you know what they are. And that's why that stereotype exists. They're humanoid. They're definitely not human, though. They have this Fey ancestry. It makes them alien to this world. Their physiology is different. They have, these intrinsic magical abilities, or some of them do anyway. And yet, when you play an elf that is full of merriment and is fine to carouse with people in a bar. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're an orc or whatever, or I'll hang out with halflings. I have no problem with that. Then suddenly your character is challenging that stereotype, and so it's not reinforcing it, but rather it's putting the highlight on your character. It's about 12 for 10 here. It is backing up the stereotype in that case, but I'll tell you, Coffee. I mean, you can relate that to what you roll as Mordecai in the Tuesday game. Yep. All right. Hey, there you go. You just said it. And so Mordecai does that in many ways. And even in effect, the dynamic. I mean, you and Noralai on Tuesdays might not have like a deep relationship, or you're not like, well, we're tieflings and that's all we are. So like, give your secret tail shake, and then like, we're all in the club. You two come from different lifestyles, and especially because the setting has a very prominent tiefling community with its own language and architecture and art and history. You are normalizing what many would consider to be a fringe race in D&D. Let's lock horns. It might be a thing. Instead of like, like clasping forearms. I don't know, it could be boop. But then again, not all tiefling horns are boop, forward. By the way, on a similar note, did you all see that Hellboy is going to get a reboot? I'm kind of sad Ron Perlman isn't going to be Hellboy, because that man is fantastic for that. Just his build and his voice and all. But speaking of, I guess, of tieflings, in a sense, or Cambions. All right, anyway, where was I? Okay, so these are the options. Again, it's encouraging you. Look, have fun with it. Ultimately, if your campaign is about setting up a regional power or using a base of operations to claim a wilderness on a frontier, to wage war, I kind of in a stereotypical fashion, cowboys and Indians kind of a thing. I know it's a dated reference. It's 2018, but I want to convey a concept here, to wage war and conquer a new territory from another country as an invader, or to take back your own, home soil from people who've crossed over into your lands. So if your campaign's about this, there can be randomization, but ultimately, Mr. Colville does want to encourage you, have fun, and use this as an exercise in thinking about your world. And what are the reactions to the events that are taking place, both in character, or if your players are investing 10,000 gold pieces into a keep, there is hopefully, I mean, he says that there should be a reward of some kind. Now, depending on your DM, well, look, a tornado can happen and just, look, 10,000 gold pieces gone, and good luck, insurance doesn't exist yet, presumably. Saw the reboot. The guy makes Hellboy look so awkward. Ron Perlman was built with Hellboy in mind when he was made. Oh, Zulapine and Oblivion, I played an orc, big, stupid, and ugly by stereotype, but I rose to lead all guilds by including mage and thieves. That's really cool, Zulapine. Nadpoo, I don't think I've ever encountered an elf playing the same way by two different people. I don't think it's the game that perpetuates stereotypes, but more the players, i.e. dumb orc, barbarians, narcissistic elves, etc. Does this supplement give guidelines on claiming abandoned strongholds? Yes, 12 for 10. It does. Hey, well, if you want to participate in that adventure, that sort of ongoing campaign we're going to be starting in the new year, Coffee, you could roll up a nice, a good orc or half orc, because I am open to going beyond the core 3 books in that system. I haven't made a final decision about it, so obviously half orc would be in if I say core only. But I may not have a problem with people who want to play other races to show the, just what is what's out there, you know, to meet other people, to welcome them aboard, to show the different civilizations that exist. A Goliath wizard? Oh. And that's good and challenging. And you know what? You can even use that in game. You can have a villain who makes these presumptions, looks at the Goliath like, oh, what are you gonna do? Cut me down? Well, good luck. I'm wearing armor and I have and then suddenly fireball, because the villain has like an 8 dex because they're like an anti-paladin or something. And, the Goliath is just sitting there and makes a little gesture, and, and the fireball flings out. And so you have this villain full of, stereotype and hubris, or hubris, is suddenly just nuked by a Goliath who the villain thought was just going to go for like a primal rage beatdown. Oh, that sounds... so what are the animals that you're incorporating into that character, Coffee Cat? All right, so let's take a look at each of the 12 classes and how a stronghold can be affected or influenced by them. The Barbarians camp promises good food and drink, as well as contests of strength and bravery, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Ale within the Barbarians' domain is particularly refreshing, bringing good cheer with no hangovers the next day, no matter how much is consumed. Woo! Woohoo! Wildlife within the Barbarians' domain grows especially large and fierce, migrating as the camp moves. Poisons brought into the Barbarians' domain neutralize within the hour. No such cowardly civilized forms of death are permitted. Remember, this is giving you as a player character an effect similar to what mini monsters get. Dragons will have an effect on the land around them. That is magical or even physical, just because a dragon exists in the area. It might need to eat or dig around or do whatever. And so if you have a barbarian camp in an area, this is what the land is providing for. No, Rhodey, you're fine. And you know what? Even if it's it might be things that other people here in the chat can also answer. So you can ask a question, and even if I don't have an answer for you immediately, someone over here may very well give you a solid opinion. And if it would have been the same as mine, so much the better. And if it's different, even more so, because then you are getting exposed to more thoughts and more choices from which you can then extrapolate your own interpretation. Nadpoo, I love it. I love it. And of course, there's that thing inside of us where we all cheer when the bad guy, who's who looks down on others, treats people poorly, goes by stereotypes or whatever, kind of gets their comeuppance by letting that sort of attitude come back and well, in this case, what 12 for 10 said is a sonic blast. But yeah, to give them a kind of a karmic blast in return. Stronghold actions. On initiative count 20, losing initiative ties, the Barbarian takes a Stronghold action with one of the following effects. They must be in the same hex or province as their Stronghold and cannot use the same effect again until after a short rest. You issue forth a mighty yop. We've played this clip before, my friends, on this channel. Where is a barbaric yop seen as a reference? Do any of you remember? A barbaric yop. You issue forth a mighty yop that causes all enemies within 60 feet to become frightened until initiative count 20 on the next round. You rage, and your allies gain the benefits of your rage as long as those allies aren't wearing heavy armor. You cast Chain Lightning with a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your constitution modifier. You may do this even while raging, and this does not end your rage. Yes, a barbaric yop. It's a very famous scene from a not unheard of movie. Class feature improvement, Chieftain's Rage. Whenever you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you can choose to make a second attack or take a free movement. You can do this a number of times equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. Remember, an extended rest is a week inside your camp. Barbarians Followers. Barbarians prefer followers who are independent and don't require a lot of oversight. They don't classically attract a large retinue. They don't usually build great keeps to house their staff and servants. A barbarian's follower must be at home in wild places, willing and able to relocate quickly and live by their wits. Their followers tend to be martial and savage. Barbarians can attract units, but they tend to be light, and barbarians don't go much for leading large armies. Big armies require a lot of organization and discipline, neither of which barbarians classically overvalue much. Barbarian retainers tend to be followers at home with nature, savagery, and chaos. Barbarians look skeptically upon knights, but welcome those who make pacts with dark forces or serve the tempest of nature. Few artisans are eager to live amongst a barbarian camp, mostly blacksmiths and miners. But barbarians tend to go places and do things other regions would never dream of, making life as a barbarian servant an attractive prospect for Sage. The ambassadors they attract tend to represent nearby humanoid tribes who do not automatically see a barbarian tribe as an enemy just because they're led by a human or elf or dwarf. To the local gnolls or hobgoblins, a barbarian camp is just another local tribe and could make a powerful ally. And Rhodium, you can also, if you want to post that up in general chat, you can. You know, because it's not necessarily a workshop. It's more of a general question of opinion on an observation. But if you think it does go into a workshop mode about, you know, writing or customizing content, then you can drop it in there too. How bad is being a vampire going to be? DM is going to slowly introduce. Well, Nadpoo, why don't you talk to Coffee Cat about that? Unfortunately, vampirism is a very special occasion, very customized. And your GM might have a different process and effects in mind for your vampirism than, say, I would for Coffee Cats. Also, Roger Twy, welcome. It's good to see you back here. And so here's a chart for Barbarian Followers. It seems to make sense. They go into, they're following the mood. But of course, you can change it up if you'd like. And by the way, each of these has some really nice art to it. You know, they tell a story. So here's like a stage duel. But meanwhile, we have, you see this person here is lifting a purse off of these two. You know, this gentleman seems to be possibly hitting on this elf maiden here in the midst, and of course you have this knight in armor who might be a guard, or it could be just a commentary. Like, you know, we all have those people who just wear heavy armor all day in the middle of town, shield out, sword up, despite you being in society. So that could be the case here. Who knows? But these illustrations all have little fun things to consider in them. Velocidatus, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your fun commentary on the mead-making process. There's a little bit more radio commentary for you there as you as you get going. Thank you for being a part of the channel again. It's great to have you here, Velocidatus. The Bard's Theater promises drama and entertainment, poetry and song, but also rumor and intrigue. It creates one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Whenever the wind blows through the trees in the Bard's domain, music plays. Hooves on roads beat out a complex rhythm. Folks who live for a week in the Bard's domain find themselves ending conversations with rhyming couplets. Thunder can be counted on to roll whenever someone in the Bard's domain says something dramatic. Ravens obediently alight on nearby branches when it's dramatically expected of them. Stronghold Actions. On initiative count 20, losing initiative ties, the Bard takes a Stronghold action with one of the following effects. The bard must be in the same hex or province as their stronghold and cannot use the same effect again until after a short rest. And until initiative count 20 on the next round, all inspiration dice produce their maximum result when rolled, followed by the sounding of a 2-tone chord, one root note and another fifth higher than the root. A 3-piece band arrives singing your praises. Until initiative count 20 on your next turn, enemies make saving throws against your magic by rolling 3 d20s and using the worst of the 3. The band has exceptionally good rhythm and world-class lute fingering, and the singer has an unusually high voice. Or you regain all inspiration dice. Class feature improvement, encouraging inspiration. While an ally has unspent inspiration, their proficiency bonus increases by 1. Ooh. This applies to a number of inspiration dice equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. That's really good. I dig it, Nadpoo, especially with what was hinted at by your DM over there. So who would follow a bard? Here's a suggested list. If you don't like it, change it. Okay, and you know what? There are notes about vampirism in the monster manual, and so I mean, be careful, because if you may not want to spoil the fun about discovering the process or what happens if you don't know already. The Clerics Church. The Clerics Church is a bastion of faith for believers and adherents to their deity's laws, and a symbol of resistance against those forces that oppose the cleric's god, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Folks who live in the cleric's domain are immune to disease. The cleric can hear the prayers of those living in their domain who are in concordance with their cleric's deity. While the cleric is hale, the weather in their domain is fair. If the cleric is wounded or suffering, the weather turns foul. For the effect to happen, the cleric merely has to be on the same plane as their domain. The same plane as their domain. Again, some people might say demence. This is indicating its domain. Stronghold Actions. All enemies within 30 feet must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or suffer the effects of the Contagion spell. Ooh. Shafts of golden light stab down from the sky, penetrating walls and ceilings. The beams target all undead, demons, and devils. Or fiends is the catch-all. Within 60 feet of you, even those hidden or invisible. Well, fiend is more specific, because that would ignore Yugoloths, if I recall correctly. I'd have to look that up in the monster manual. That being said, would you include Yugoloths? About other extraplanar creatures? Targets must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be annihilated. You and all allies in the stronghold recover all hit dice and gain 30 temporary hit points. Class feature improvement. Manifest Divinity. When using your Channel Divinity class feature, all allies within 30 feet regain 3d8 hit points. You can do this a number of times equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And again, the Clerics Followers are going to be different than those of the others we've had so far. Presumably, these are going to be thematic for a cleric, but I mean, we know that there's 7, 8 different domains that exist, and so you might want to change it up in some way. A death cleric might attract different people than a life cleric. Vampire buddies for life. And this is what we were talking about last night, at least with the art here. The Druid's Grove. Yeah. Repeat after me. The reign in the domain is mainly mine. Or, those who reign in the domain... let's see. Shoot. I had it in my brain. Right? With main. M-E-I-N. Like, one's main, how they carry themselves. You could do a fun play on words with that too, Zulurpai. Hey, TJ, welcome. Some of the top-level followers are... so like, do you mean that you think that this is broken in some way? Uh-oh, Zulurpai is getting frisky off candied ginger. You know it's the season for that. It's alright, while I was out shopping a little bit earlier before going live, I got some eggnog, so, you know, I'm indulging too. Well, this is not eggnog. Fizzy eggnog would be interesting, though. Coffee Cat? Don't do this to me, brother. You can't just say that on this channel. You can't say eggnog is blah. You can. It's fine. The Druid's Grove is a symbol of nature's beauty and power, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Hey, diadems. And whether or not you add a fine, you know, some bourbon to it or not, I'm a fan of eggnog. You're killing me. You're killing me, coffee. And that's coming from the man who killed you on Tuesday. You're killing me here. Local birds and mammals in the Druid's domain can speak Common and Elven. They enjoy talking to new people, but will try to find and warn the Druid if suspicious strangers enter the domain. Nuts, fruits, and vegetables grown naturally, i.e. not farmed or cultivated, in the Druid's domain grant those who eat them the effect of Goodberry. If taken outside the domain, they lose this effect. No roads or trails in the Druid's domain, last more than a day. However, allies and the units of allies can pass through the domain as though there were roads. No bourbon, some whiskey. I think that would still work if you put it in a nice, like, especially if you get like a nice custard eggnog. Well, there's plenty. I mean, you can get custard eggnogs that have, and even the Southern Comfort eggnog doesn't have alcohol in it by default, or at least there's a version you could get in a carton that doesn't. And hey, if you want to try something else, I know that Silk, which is soy milk, so if you're lactose intolerant or whatnot, Silk has a pretty decent eggnog too. I tried it. You know, I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind soy milk at all. I was a little skeptical, but I'll tell you, it was still pretty yummy. I went out of my way to buy some for myself. Stronghold Actions, just like the others. Initiative on 20, losing initiative ties. Druid takes a Stronghold action to cause one of the following effects. And then the same proximity to your province. Grasping vines rise from the ground for 1 minute. Every enemy within 60 feet must make a dexterity saving throw or be restrained for the duration, taking 3d8 damage at the start of each of their rounds from stabbing thorns. At the end of its turn, an affected enemy can make another saving throw to escape. You cast Banishment on an enemy, sending them to Arcadia on a failed save. You summon 1d4 plus 1 shambling mounds who fight for you for 1 minute. That is an army on demand. Shambling mounds can put in a lot of work. They're very interesting creatures. And considering that most combats don't last more than a minute, you're getting some major backup from this. Class feature improvement, Savage Shape. When you assume your wild shape, choose a damage type of fire, cold, or poison. While in your wild shape form, you gain a breath weapon of that type. As a bonus action on your turn, you can exhale gas of the chosen damage type in a 30-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a Constitution saving throw against your spell DC, taking 46 damage of the chosen type on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. You can do this a number of times equal to your Stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. A Druid's Followers. Living between civilization and wilderness, the Druid attracts followers willing to put up with a life devoted to the health and well-being of nature, defending it and learning its secrets. Few are willing to walk this path, but those who do are totally devoted to the Druid's service. Druids care little for the command and upkeep of large armies, preferring to use battle magic to raise special units when necessary. This being said, they are one of the classes that can attract flying units, often hawk riders or units mounted on giant owls. Few artisans are interested in a life lived outside civilization, but druids are spellcasters and lore masters, so it's natural for alchemists, sages, and scribes to pledge service in exchange for greater knowledge. Ambassadors who wish to join a druid's retinue are usually fae or aligned with them, or creatures who prefer the swamps and bogs that druids are naturally attracted to as a source of power. And druids have their own short list of special allies they may recruit from among the fae creatures of the woods. And so look, I mean, elf ambassador, gnome, lizard folk ambassador, and so forth. Hey, here's the cover. The Fighter's Fortress. Hey, Sire, welcome. Yeah, and same to you, Sire. We're talking about eggnog and vampires right now. We aren't playing D&D, we're playing eggnog and vampires. I appreciate you have allowed Mordecai to retain himself so far. I could PM you the playlist. Oh, the VOD. Okay, gotcha. That Coffee, that was the dad poo. All right. And, well, Coffee, I'll tell you, there are reasons for it. And I'm not saying that in a threatening manner, or that I'm somehow doing you a favor by imposing, vampirism on you. What I present to you all on Tuesdays is done even subtly or overtly, or even if it's overtly but you all don't see it or make the connection, is all done in a way to promote the idea of what is going on in the world around you and how things interact with each other. The Fighter's Fortress is a bastion against intruders, and it rewards those who practice their martial training, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Fortifications in the fighter's domain grant units defending them an extra +2 morale bonus. Menhirs appear in a fighter's domain following anyone hostile to those who call this province home, imposing themselves between intruders and the locals. Archers who train in the fighter's domain find their arrows go farther and strike more accurately, and edged weapons in the fighter's domain are keener and do not dull. Stronghold Actions, the same considerations of proximity and when on a turn it can happen. Until initiative count 20 in the next round, any enemy who tries to cast a spell in your domain experiences searing pain. The enemy can choose another action, but if it chooses to cast the spell, it must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d6 force damage per level of the spell, and the spell has no effect and is wasted. Until the end of your next turn, you and all your allies' weapon attacks hit automatically. Roll anyway, though. You might score a crit. You and all your allies are restored to full hit points. It's a big second wind, huh? Class feature improvement. A Fighting Surge. Whenever you attack by using your action surge, you automatically score a critical hit. You can do this for a number of surges equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And all kinds of people would are just by presumption attracted to a fighter stronghold or a fighter fortress. Again, though, if you don't like this list, swap stuff out. A monk's monastery. The monk's monastery is a monument to contemplation and self-reliance, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Creatures age more slowly within the confines of the monk's domain. The temperature in the monk's domain is always temperate all year round, all day long. Violence of any kind in the domain has a 15% chance of summoning a source of earth, who immediately uses back to earth to end the violence. The monk can reverse these effects. These are references to things, to other creatures later. Stronghold Actions. Until initiative count 20 on the next round, your skin becomes diamond. For the duration, you are immune to all but psychic damage. You make 8 unarmed attacks against an adjacent enemy, or you regain all ki as though you had finished a long rest. Whew. This seems like a short and simple list, but for a monk, you are putting in a lot of work with these, these abilities. Your class feature improvement is a focused ki. Whenever you're attacked while you have unspent ki, you can ignore all of its effects except its damage. You can do this a number of times equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And here's an example. The Scion of Orcus casts Black Tentacles, and Baltair the Monk is in the area of effect. Regardless of the outcome of Baltair's evasion, he is not restrained by the tentacles because he has unspent ki. And again, who might be attracted to a monastery? There's examples for you. If you want me to go back and go over a specific list, let me know. Otherwise, I'm making you aware that they're here. And of course, while I'm narrating, while you're listening to what I'm reading here, you could very well just be reading what's going on over here. I hope that this is this big enough for you all? Is that a little bit better? Hopefully. I hope that you're able to read this. You're able to read this on your end. The Paladin's Chapel broadcasts the power of good and law across the countryside, creating one or more of the following effects. Now remember, he said, I believe in LG Paladins questing for good and righteousness. If you do it differently, then this can change as well. Clear blue skies and warm sun dominate year-round. Rain falls only at night, and thunderstorms avoid the area. Evil creatures in daylight have disadvantage on attack rolls, saving throws, skill checks, and ability checks. The Paladin is instantly aware of the presence and location in his domain of any chaotic or evil creature with more than 7 hit dice. The range of this awareness is a number of hexes equal to the level of the Paladin stronghold. I mean, think of the Bat Cave, right? Is that a good example? Yeah, it uses modern tech, but I mean, tech magic is kind of the same thing but different. They are strong abilities, Volvo. Though in the disclaimer, this resource did say that the things you are going to get by owning a stronghold can upset the balance of the game under normal circumstances. So a GM will have to adapt in some way. But remember, too, this is a strength, but these strongholds are also a liability for the characters. They also can act as an anchor to the characters, whereas a more mobile enemy might be able to dance around them because they might be staying in their keep in order to protect their acreage. Fighting off a food coma? Oh, Diadems, what did you have to eat? Tech is sciencey magic. Yeah, I mean, look, if I showed someone, you know, a mobile phone, if I were able to travel back in time even 50 years, well, heck, look at Back to the Future and what a Walkman did. A cassette tape Walkman. All right, Stronghold Actions. Initiative count 20, etc., so forth, that we've already covered here. Each chaotic or evil creature, your choice, within 20 feet must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be bound by gold, anti-evil, or silver, anti-chaos, chains, grappling it until it makes a strength or dexterity check as an action against your spell DC. Flying creatures within 120 feet must succeed on a Constitution check or immediately land. They cannot take off again for the remainder of combat. Choose an ally within sight to gain an AC bonus equal to your charisma bonus, as their armor becomes gold for the remainder of combat. Each ally can be affected by this ability only once per day. I guess we'll have to presume that gold weighs a lot, and we're going to ignore the weight. And we'll just apply like a nice tough, like a Rust-Oleum effect, like a golden spray paint effect on their armor. Class feature improvement, Righteous Smite. Your Divine Smite burns through enemy resistance. Enemies normally resistant to either radiant damage or your weapon damage lose it. Enemies invulnerable to either type of damage are now resistant to it, and enemies without resistance to either divine or weapon damage become vulnerable. Ooh. You can do this for a number of attacks equal to your Stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. Coffee Cat, that's an excellent attitude. Anything that you can do to an enemy, they can do back to you. That is true. And sometimes we as PCs might say, oh, well, we have plot armor, or like, well, we're the stars of the show, so like, let's just venture boldly forward. But that's very much true. Enemies, just because you can sneak and have a really good stealth doesn't mean that an enemy doesn't, or that they can't hire someone to try and poison you, or you know, all sorts of things. So that's a good thing to always keep in mind, Coffee Cat. Sweet and sour pork and egg rolls. Oh, diadems. That sounds really good. TJ says, or the enemy gets their own stronghold and has a cold war with the PCs. Yes. In fact, villain strongholds are going to be brought up here in just a little bit. Winged Elves. A paladin might attract an ambassador from the Covert Court, the Court of Winged Elves. This allows the paladin to buy aerial units with winged elf ancestry, and that's a reference for later in this supplement here. But again, Paladin followers, this is what they're suggesting might come to your paladin's chapel. Also, a special Paladin Mount. If you roll really well, a 91 to 93, you get a special Paladin Mount as a follower. This mount replaces the normal horse that you can attract. And of course, if you roll even higher, you may attract a dragon. If your dragon is incredibly good-natured and well-disposed to you, it may let you ride it. But this is rare, for dragons are proud creatures. That being said, in times of desperation, your allies may come to your aid in combat, especially when defending your realm. And in these times, legends tell of great paladins who rode their dragon allies into battle. Probably the dragon versions of these stories tell a different tale. It isn't that fun to think of. In Alicorn, natives of Arcadia, the winged unicorn, not to be confused with the horned Pegasus, can be summoned by a particularly devout paladin to serve as their mount. They do not particularly like the mundane world, but they enjoy and find satisfaction in hunting evil and chaos. They will serve as mount and companion to a holy knight only so long as it brings the opportunity to smash evil, a sport they are denied on their home plane. And here is the stats. If you want to run an Alicorn as a monster, as a mount, as what you'd like, the stats are in here. And for the special mounts, here's a Hippogriff, a Griffin, Pegasus, Unicorn, or an Alicorn. Oh, I like that technique, Coffee Cat. That's good advice. I hope you all out there are taking Professor Coffee Cat's side advice there. And of course, if you have any experiences of your own, you're certainly welcome to throw it out there. I like this picture. That's because I love pictures that are very, for lack of a better term, they're very comfortable or comfy feeling, right? You know, we have this lodge out in the wilderness. It's, you know, autumn is coming here, a little bit of snow on the mountains, so, you know, it's probably kind of like an Indian summer. Like it's probably cold otherwise. The leaves are falling. We can actually see some falling in front of the elk. You know, but in the sun, it feels excellent. There's game aplenty, big game here. And you have some smoke coming out of a chimney. So there's probably, you know, a good stew going. There's warmth being provided by the fireplace. And it's just a nice autumn day. And so pictures like this just really are... you know, they make you just want to like cuddle up and just be like, oh, this is a good day to be alive. So, the Ranger's Lodge. The Ranger's Lodge is a place of good hunting and security, creating one or more of the following effects. Stags, harts, and other game are always plentiful in the Ranger's domain, but they are larger and fiercer than normal. Enemies of the Ranger and the locals must make DC 15 survival checks to navigate the Ranger's domain. On a failure, they are attacked by 2d6 Winter Wolves. Ooh, Winter Wolves are pretty savage. I don't know if you saw me pop them open out of... pardon. Winter Wolves are in Monster Menagerie 2, if I recall correctly. Or wait, or were they Storm King's Thunder? They might be in Storm King's Thunder. They're dire wolves, but they're actually a little bit more dire than even that. On initiative count 20, etc., so forth, small targets appear on the vulnerable spots of nearby enemies. Until initiative count 20 on your next turn, on your next round, all enemies within 60 feet have vulnerability to your attacks. And by the way, that's nice because a lot of people... This is anecdotal. A lot of rangers I know and have played with don't take the bow and arrow magic. You know, there's different shots you can take that are magical, including the one that you fire an arrow up into the air and it turns into many arrows that rain down. So this might encourage that spell a little bit more. Although I don't know. I know that in 5th edition, rangers have a bit of a stigma for people. You know, not just with like min-maxers or the like, but they seem to have an odd stigma. Well, I believe that's been fixed, or that the stigma isn't necessarily, well, maybe especially because it has been addressed in a free errata. But they haven't been terrible classes; they've just been kind of different, and so because they can be circumstantial, especially the Beastmaster Ranger, which is really the only one that needed any sort of modification. They always just sort of had this stigma around them. Okay, they are in Storm King's Thunder. Gotcha, Diadems. You summon a fog cloud in a 60-foot radius that lasts for a minute. You and your allies can see through this fog as though it were merely a hazy mist that did not obscure vision. Until initiative count 20 on the next turn, all of your successful attacks also cause the target to bleed. A bleeding creature takes 3d8 damage at the start of each of its following turns and can make a DC 18 Constitution save at the end of its turn to end the bleeding. Your favored enemy, this is the class feature improvement, chosen enemy. Your favored enemy has vulnerability to your attacks. You can do this a number of damage rolls equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest or a week inside your lodge to refresh this ability. And there is a footnote down here about vulnerability to your attacks of, remember, the goal is players read this and think, quote, wow, I want to build a stronghold, end quote. Jeff, hey, thank you. Jeff, I hope you're having fun in here and you're following along. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask them in chat. If you are considering playing with these rules, or you already are, you're welcome to comment in here if you'd like. After which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And I'm sorry. That takes to the footnote down below. And the GM sees, oh, this only happens like 3 times per adventure and doesn't freak out. The Rogues Tavern. And again, great tavern scene. Nice arm wrestling. We have, people who are drinking, betting, socializing. I wonder if is there a cut purse in this one that we can see? Maybe not, unless this guy kind of like leering ahead is stealing the foppish noble's coin purse from his belt. The Rogues Tavern is a hotbed of intrigue and information, creating one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. These rules assume a 24-mile hex, so all powers affect the 12-mile radius. One ally per level of the Rogue Stronghold can hide in the Rogue's domain, and no mundane or magical means will reveal their location. This ability does not work on the owner of the Stronghold. Creatures trespassing in the Rogue's domain have the overwhelming sensation they are being spied upon. When a creature hostile to the rogue and aware of their existence finishes a long rest within the rogue's domain, roll a d20. On a roll of 10 or less, the creature triggers a hidden trap, taking 3d8 piercing damage. Ooh. Stronghold Actions. All enemies within 60 feet are marked for death. For the next minute, if you hit a marked enemy, you can remove its mark and deal an extra 6d6 slashing damage. Enemies within 60 feet are revealed, losing stealth and invisibility. And you gain a coin of fate. Each time you are hit in combat, you may flip the coin. Heads, the attack misses instead. Tails, the attack hits as normal and you lose the coin. Class feature improvement, Satisfying Strike. Damage from your sneak attack dice also heals you in equal amount. You can do this a number of attacks equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. So far, I mean, we've gone through most of the classes so far. Does this feel like thematic backing? If you were a rogue, who had a bar, if we just go for a rogue's tavern, would you see this as being appropriate to the concept of a rogue or of your rogue? Because all of you might play different rogues. The Sorcerers Sanctum. The Sorcerers Sanctum houses a collection of curiosities and antiquities. It creates one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. Curses, blessings, and oaths pronounced within the Sorcerer's domain have a 15% chance of causing the speaker to roll on the wild magic table. Folks who live in the Sorcerer's domain for a season learn one random sorcerer cantrip. They lose the ability to cast it if they ever leave. And raindrops in the Sorcerer's domain cast dazzling prismatic reflections during the day. Stronghold Actions. You cast 3 spells from your list of You cast 3 spells from your list of prepared spells using spell slots as normal. Woohoo! For the next minute, all of your spells are heightened as per heightened spell. You cannot use sorcery points to heighten an already heightened spell. And you are wreathed by a fire shield. Enemies who strike the shield take 48 damage instead of 2d8. Class feature improvement, Source of Magic. While you have unspent sorcery points, if you roll the maximum result on a spell's damage die, including reroll die, you can reroll it and add the new roll to the original roll. You can do this for a number of spells equal to your stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And the footnote on that is 5 and 6. Sorcerers get exploding dice. Sexy, but statistically it's super unlikely you'll see several dice being re-rolled several times. So it sounds awesome and is fun, but doesn't cause a runaway cascade effect. And 6, if you roll damage dice and get no maxed out dice, you don't use a charge of your feature improvement. Gareth, hey, welcome. Good to see you here, sir. Do I have to do that whistle, that hoo hoo hoo, and have everyone come to attention? Sorcerers Followers. Average folks find wizards weird enough, gabbling in strange languages and living up to their eyeballs in books and owl poop. But they at least have rules. A sorcerer, on the other hand, gains their power through an innate connection with the forces of magic. No training required. This is even less well understood by normal people. A sorcerer's followers, therefore, tend to be folks who enjoy being close to raw power and do not fear what they do not understand. A sorcerer's army is usually light and highly mobile, and like other classes that eschew... Oh, diadems! Well, thank you for gifting Gareth a subscription. So maybe I do have to call to attention. We have an officer. Yeah, the bosun's whistle. You're not that important. Oh, okay. There you go, Gareth. You just got an infield promotion, or I guess it would be like an on-sea promotion. But yeah, that's right. It's the bosun's whistle. I forgot that. Yeah. That was a terrible whistle. I'm sorry. That's reserved for just very high-ranking officers, I presume. A sorcerer's army is usually light. Okay. Their artisans are folks who enjoy making things and probably hope being in the court of a sorcerer will grant them the opportunity to create magic items. Their ambassadors come from cultures that do not fear sorcery and whose soldiers would have no problem serving under a commander who can conjure fire through sheer will. The Warlock's Fane. Let's pipe Gareth aboard. This is a temple to Jade. Jade the Swole. If any of you don't know, Jade is a character that Macabre Derek plays in our Tuesday game here on our channel, and has the highest strength score in the party of a 9, and manages feats of strength that are just uncanny despite that. Jade has put on some bulk. Yes, all capitals, bulk. It's actually used while sending messages throughout the ship on larger ships like carriers, etc., as well as being used on ceremony. I'm not actually 100% certain of all the uses of the bosun's whistle. It's probably, yeah, it's probably more for, oh, there's a cat on the minis. There's a cat on the minis. He wants a miniature. Hi, what are you doing, bud? What? Why do you have to crawl that way? Hi. I'm going to put a cap on this before it's knocked over. You know what's going to happen. The Warlock's Fane is a locus of power committed to a being of alien intelligence. It creates one or more of the following effects at the GM's discretion. The sun appears as a baleful orb in the sky over the Warlock's domain. In the Warlock's domain, constellations in the night sky are strange, and stars occasionally fall from the sky. The Warlock is immediately aware of enemies in their domain, and once per month, the Warlock can summon an earthquake as per the spell, targeting any enemies in their domain. Stronghold Actions. On initiative count 20... Hey, there we go. We've had a cat butt, and I've eaten on stream. It's official, everyone. You recover all spell slots as though you completed a short rest. You fire an Eldritch Blast at each enemy you can see within 60 feet. Ooh, that's like a Death Blossom. And you can summon a Type 6 Servitor. And see page 31 about that. That's you summon servitors at temples. Class feature improvement, Master Invoker. To qualify for Eldritch invocations as though your Warlock level or you qualify for Eldritch Invocations as though your Warlock level were 5 levels higher. You can do this for a number of invocations equal to your Stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And to get a glimpse at just who would be attracted to a Warlock's Fane, bada boom. And now, finally, the Wizard's Library. And Wizard's definitely zapping that that Dargon there. The Wizard's Library is a bastion of knowledge and research best hidden from the mundane world. Creates the following effects. The Library of the Wizard's Stronghold has a copy of every non-magical book anyone brings into the Wizard's domain. By concentrating for 10 minutes, the Wizard can scry on any person or location in their domain as per the scrying spell. The Wizard can do this while anywhere, including another world. Once per day, the Wizard can control the weather in their domain. The Wizard doesn't have to be in the domain to do this. The effect is otherwise the same as the control weather spell. Stronghold actions that the Wizard can take. You cast a spell from your list of prepared spells. This does not use a spell slot. You cast Flesh to Stone on all enemies within 60 feet. This does not use a spell slot. Or you recover all spent spell slots as though you had finished a long rest. Ooh. The damage output, or just the output of whatever you're going for. Even if it's, create food and water for the people living in your domain. You cast that a bunch of times. If you allow such spells as a DM, you can maintain 2 spells with concentration at once. Spellmaster. This is nice, huh? You can maintain 2 spells with concentration at once. You can do this a number of times equal to your Stronghold level, after which you must take an extended rest to refresh this ability. Veil Fears, welcome. What do you think of this supplement so far? I think it is an interesting set of side rules that is, it changes the way that we think of a normal D&D game. And it is written in a very conversational way that makes it easier to understand. Not just the rules, but the concepts behind it. Where did this thought originate? Why, if we're going to make a line in the sand about the cost of something, the time to build something, well, it's not just saying, well, this is purely random. It's giving you the underlying presumptions so that it's giving you options. And it wants to empower you with options and repeats that several times throughout the book. That if you don't like what you read here, customize it completely for your campaign. We're going to give you some basic assumptions, and you can modify the costs, times, effects, and charts based on your own world. And so, Veil, I think that if you are open to running this kind of game as a DM, because it does require more management of time and resources and a different scale of time and economy and perhaps political ramifications than what many D&D games may normally, quote-unquote, face. If you all, as a DM and PCs, want to invest that time and effort, these rules do feel solid to me. I have enjoyed going through them, and I might end up adapting some personally, or for the games that we broadcast on this channel. Zulerpie, some domains are quite large, so can one PC stronghold overlap another? If so, then effects would overlap too, so it'd be complicated. Well, so yeah, you can have several strongholds form what is called a castle by the terms of this supplement. And because normally only one character can obtain the benefits of one stronghold. So in this case, a castle supporting an adventuring party would be able to grant each of the different characters an ability. And I don't necessarily see where the domain can't overlap, right? Especially if you have a castle where different services are coming together. Vale says it sounds awesome. I knew Matt would do a good job. I like it. It's different, but he's writing with a lot of practical experience that he's garnered at his own tabletop or the tabletops of others. And he's not afraid to address that or break the fourth wall and say, look, at the end of the day, we're here to have fun and tell a story. And as a DM, or as a GM, because this is open gaming license, as a GM, at least consider that if your players are spending the time and effort in the campaign to build a stronghold or to hire an army or to summon spellcasters or whatever, that, you know, I want to encourage you to make sure that they are having fun and that they are going to get what they're looking for, ultimately. And all the while, you as... By the way, thank you very much for that follow. And also, you as the GM, knowing what is empowering your PCs, can adjust accordingly so that the scale of your campaign remains appropriate, even though the focus may have shifted from a roaming, you know, like an untethered band of wanderers looking to scrape up money for magic swords and armor for themselves, to a band that wants to sort of be tethered to an area to anchor themselves in the story and the setting and defend it or expand it or use it as a base of operations and explore into a wilderness beyond it, kind of a thing. Oh, Swifty Healer. All right, so you changed your name to Snake Plissken. Well, welcome back. It's good to see you again, Swifty. Okay, so you can concentrate, and then, of course, who would want to ever go to a wizard's tower? Here's a suggested list of followers that can be attracted. And now, finally, we are going to go into the villains. What a villain stronghold, kind of generic, right? And then we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about followers. The villains of your campaign can, and if your players are using these rules probably should, have their own stronghold, which grants them villain abilities, which will help them threaten PCs with strongholds. GMs, you are encouraged to play fast and loose with what counts as a stronghold for these purposes. Probably the best answer for this is, quote, wherever the bad guy keeps their treasure, unquote, or, quote unquote, end quote. They also grant the villain's minions special abilities under the premise that everyone trains harder and fights better when they have a cool base. We could get very noodly indeed here with many kinds and types of villains and minions, but I want to keep it simple, so we'll go by the rule of three. Villains fall into three broad categories: Necromancer, Shaman, Warlord. And minions fall into mindless servants, rampaging hordes, and tactical phalanxes. This covers a lot of ground, but obviously it doesn't cover everything, so feel free to adjust these terms and abilities to your own adventure. Although it may seem obvious that a necromancer would command mindless servants, it need not be so. The abilities of the villains and minions aren't designed to synergize in any particular way. A necromancer may command a savage horde, or a shaman command mindless servants. All the abilities will be useful without any combination turning the encounter into a rout, at least not on purpose. Minions require a leader. Though that leader need not be present on the battlefield, like the hero stronghold abilities, these villain and minion powers are granted through training and a connection with the land itself. If the party finds itself fighting a band of goblins who seem to be critting more often, it's a sign that they come from a nearby goblin stronghold and serve some villainous leader, probably a hobgoblin. And this is why you need a goblin slayer in your party. This is a dramatic way to introduce a villain and hint to the players that there must be a nearby enemy stronghold. The players fight undead or goblinoids or cultists, or bandits that seem much more capable than the normal beasties they're used to fighting. When these enemies charge into battle, they call out something that sounds like it might be a name. Maybe capturing one would be a good idea. Question it. Oops, it didn't survive long enough to spill the beans. Well, all will become clear once the heroes penetrate the enemy stronghold and fight the leader of these creatures. Villain examples: Necromancer. Lady Serial, the Vampire Queen, cult leader. Special ability, as a reaction, make a wisdom check after a minion takes enough damage to kill it. The DC is 8 plus the hit die of the minion. If successful, the minion does not die and drops to 1 hit point. Shaman, Lizardfolk Chieftain, Troll Shaman. Special ability, minions who can hear you gain advantage on saving throws against magical spells and effects. Or a Warlord. Bonebreaker, Dorakor, Bandit King. Special ability, as a reaction, when a minion dies, issue a command to your other minions. Those who can hear you gain a reaction they can use to immediately move again. Minion examples, Mindless Servants, Undead, Oozes, Constructs. Special ability, gain an extra 10 feet of movement. Savage Horde, Orcs, Goblins, Demons, Thugs. After moving at least 20 feet, the next attack this minion makes is a critical hit on an 18 to 20. Or a tactical phalanx, Hobgoblins, Lizardfolk, Devils, Cultists, Bandits. Special ability, if an enemy's attack kills an ally, all minions adjacent to that enemy gain an attack of opportunity against the enemy. Ooh. So you strike down Goblin Bob next to you, who might only have 2 hit points, and suddenly everyone gets upset and will hit the the vengeful paladin that tried to smite it. Yeah, TJ, it's good stuff. It very much is. These goblins are critting too much. Better cover ourselves with goblin blood. And Gareth said, I had a player do something similar to that once. Role-playing can never go too far, says Vale. That's right, we gotta blend in with them. Cover yourselves in goblin blood. Maybe we can crit too. No, not Goblin Bob. I wanted to kill him. Get that guy, says TJ. Special allies. Congratulations! You rolled well on your follower chart and attracted a special ally. Allies are like followers in that they approve of what you're doing in the world and want to help, but allies are powerful beings, often more powerful than your character. They cannot be ordered around, and they can be unreliable. Find your alignment on the chart below and roll a d12 to see which cool beastie shows up to help you out. So, chart, you can reference it. Devils, Fae, Demons, special allies that are neutral evil. Again, he brings up that he uses an old school, methodology with the alignment, and that's fine. He's open about it. He's explained his thinking. And if you have a different take on alignment, or you want to mix up what might be available on this chart, Mr. Colville does encourage you, do it. Have fun. I mean, look, in how he's expressing himself through this document, you spent money on this book. I'm sure that he greatly appreciates it. And he wants this to be something not where he's telling you how to play D&D his way, but he wants to give you things to consider to make your world more I don't want to say complex, like that's a bad thing, more involved, where you're anchoring your PCs into your world so that they aren't just lol random murder hobos wandering around, not connected to the story, the land, its people, successes, or whatever. I had a player try to infiltrate a kobold base by skinning a kobold and wearing it. Oh wow. A little morbid. I presume it was a halfling or a gnome or something, or did we have like or did we have like Furball Greg skin a kobold, just sort of wear it as a hat, hoping no one would notice. Where have I seen this character before? I don't know. It's just burning me up that I can't seem to place it. It's just really dogging me. It was a dwarf. Fat guy in a little coat. Alright. So we're going to end the segment on... Hey, Ooze. Vale, this is indeed a resemblance to a character in Game of Thrones. Five wisdom. Ooh, that would make him a little goofy, wouldn't it? All right, so let's take a 10-minute break, everyone. Go get a snack, a drink. If you have to use the restroom, go ahead and do so. And when we come back, we are going to get into the followers section of this supplement and really dig into it. Hey, Golden, welcome. We're just about ready to go on break. So let's meet back here in 10, everyone.